drum for a little bit, but when I was over there, I actually dropped a packet to go to Army Special Operations, and actually early of 18, right after I got back, early 18, I went down there, went through that assessment thing, and made it in there. And then 2018, I got stationed at Fort Campbell. Um, and then I was there until June of this year. So a little bit, I was there a little bit over 4 years. I think I deployed five times altogether, I think. But you know what? I don't want to get out, and not knocking them, but I don't want to get out and be 80 years old and wear that little black hat on my head with the two ribbons that says I was here, and it's the only thing I have to talk about. Um, yeah, I don't remember exactly where that left off at. I think it was the time I was leaving the Amish, I guess.
Yeah, it was
I think.
actually kind of you had left off with, you had literally, it was kind of like you were talking through your last days in the Amish, like how that all came about, where you went to, and
I
then,
gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah. I think I do remember what we were talking about, because the second part I started talking about the night I actually left, like how I ended up leaving. Like,
Yeah.
like I literally took my lasso and like let my stuff down over the porch roof, and then I took off down. I had to wait because mom was downstairs taking care of my little brother, and so so I had to wait because I couldn't tell anybody because they would have physically tried to stop me. And so I scooted downstairs as soon as she went back in the bedroom with him, and left a note on the table that literally just said, had my name on it. Said, hey, I left. That's literally all it said.
So that's how your mom and dad found out. I mean, did they know you were kind of unhappy there, or, in the Amish or anything, or was that just like a bombshell for them?
you know, I think they probably would have expected it 6 months or a year before that, but I kind of doubt they were expecting it at the time, because I was actually in the process of joining the church, and it was about a week and a half from getting baptized and becoming a member of the church. So, and then I just scooted. I was like, I can't do it.
Yeah, and so for other, especially some communities, the more especially conservative Amish communities, like that's a really big deal. Like, especially if you're already trying to go through membership and everything like that. And then for you to just
Yeah.
kind of back out and leave, I mean, they probably almost had held a funeral for you and everything, right?
I mean, they basically said they rather I would have died than left. So, I guess kind of. But yeah, that was uh, August 6th of 2013, I think. And so I guess it's something almost 10 years now. And it just keeps on flying. But yeah, I left. My sister later told me that they were like looking for me, and because I was going to work that day, and um they were looking for me, and she knew I left a note on the table, and they just didn't find it, and she finally like accidentally kind of found it and was like, oh hey, look at this. Yeah,
So
so
did your
that's how they
sister
found
know?
out.
Did your sister know you were leaving? Was she somebody you could talk to about that, or?
Yeah, she would have been the one that you would have met in Ohio as well. Yeah. So uh, her and my next younger brother both knew I was leaving. Um, and I didn't. I think I went back there about a month and a half later. That was the first time I saw, other than a couple of my siblings. It was the first time I saw them after I left. That's pretty awkward. Um, but then when the my he's 20, I believe 20 now. My brother, another one of my brothers is out here that I work with. When he left, I went to New York to go pick him up with another one of my brothers. We went up there, and we were there we actually, at this point, we could, of course, walk in and nobody physically try to stop you, and wish they couldn't have at that point anyway. But it, we basically had to sit there for like, well, we didn't have to. We kind of chose to. Sat there and, excuse me, for about 30 minutes, and uh, my my mother basically told us that we were going to go to hell, and Jesus was going to throw the key away. And Like I'm not even joking, dude. Not none of
You're
that
going to
is
be the
even
kindling
whatsoever
for
is
the
made.
fire, right?
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. It was, and at that point, you've left for so long and worked through so much stuff that it was funny on your end, but you almost feel for them on their end because you're like, man, that's got to be a tough spot to be in. Your kids are, you legitimately believe your kids are going to burn in hell, and like that's got to be rough. But that's got to be like actually miserable. But looking back is kind of funny. But so that was the last. That's actually the last time. No, no, that wasn't the last time. My dad actually called me on my birthday that year, but I haven't talked to him. I haven't talked to my mother for probably going on 2 years, and I haven't talked to my dad for a little over a year now. And don't really, and honestly, don't really care to, just because, like, I mean, they're my parents, but at the same time, it's like if somebody's going to treat you that bad, eventually, you're not going to want anything to do with them. And right now, I really don't need that crap in my life, so I just kind of
Well,
stay
does
away
that
from it.
also go back to like your home life? Like, did you guys have a good, close relationship when you were at home, or was that okay, but then after you left, it just fizzled out?
No, actually, well, I was younger up until the time I was about 14, um, which my dad was gone quite a bit, so I didn't see that much of him. So my mom would have been maybe kind of close, but after that, like I was maybe closer. No, I wasn't really close with either one of them, really. I was probably closer with my dad up until a couple of years ago. Like after I left the Amish, I was probably closer with him than I ever was before because we had more of an open dialogue. Like I would actually, talk to him about, things that had went on. And it's like, man, like I've done work through that. Like, don't like I because he was, he beat himself up over it, over things he had done when we were younger. I was like, dude, it's done, gone over with. Like you've, changed quite a bit. Just let it go. It's like there's no hard feelings here. And so we had more of an open dialogue actually. And yeah, he's kind of a different fella because he doesn't really believe in what he's doing, and so that caused a lot of issues. But I'm sure it causes a lot of turmoil in your head too if you're like doing stuff you don't believe in because you think you're trapped there. And so, so we were closer after I left, just simply because there was more of I kind of forced more of an open dialogue, I guess, in a sense, because I was like, I don't want this other, under the carpet kind of crap we've had going on for years. And so it's like I'll take the open one or none. And so it worked. But now like my mom keeps going back and forth with the younger kids because she knows she can get to them. And she keeps going back and forth. It was like, you guys can come home. Oh no, you can't. And I was like, guys, come on, just live your life, let it go. She's doing it because she knows she can get to you in some way or shape or form. And not
Yeah.
saying she's a bad person, but it's the only thing form of control she's got left with her kids. And so she yanks their chains a little bit.
So it kind of keeps her kids almost like striving to gain her approval and those
Mm-hmm.
types of
Yeah.
things like, and I see that in a lot of adults, even, that they're still trying to gain their parents' approval and stuff. And
Oh,
at a
Lord,
certain
yes.
point in time, man, you just have to go and live your life. I mean, I'm not sitting there and saying that you can't, try to have a good relationship with your parents. But if your parents are, essentially doing that, holding things over your head, and telling you when you can and can't come around, when they're going to accept you and when they're not, like, you just go live your life. Like, I mean, you're an
Yeah.
adult. You don't,
Yeah.
at that point in time, you have to treat them like you would anybody else, and
Yeah.
hopefully wouldn't try to have friends that would do something like that to you.
Yeah. I agree. And people want to act like family is everything, and I'm not saying it's not because my brothers that have left, I have a closer relationship with them than almost anybody else. But were they to treat me or somebody I'm close to in the manner that my parents do or other people do from the community I left, I mean, I cut ties with them immediately. I mean, I really don't. I do not mess around when it comes to that stuff. Like, I don't really. Guess I'm getting old enough to where I really don't need the approval. Like, I'd rather have my own approval, I guess. So, and it's just a much happier place to be in, really.
Yeah, I mean, and it does suck. It's not, I mean, when you sit there and talk about it, it sounds like we're talking about it in a very nonchalant way, but and it's not easy to do. And, I find myself doing it sometimes even now. Like I had a couple good friends years ago when I was still, part of a church and all that kind of stuff. And every now and then, every couple months we'll talk and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I was just thinking about you the other day, And it's like, oh, okay, you start noticing a pattern, like they said that about the last 3 times we talked, And then it's like, oh yeah, we need to go grab like a cup of coffee or get dinner or, whatever. And they'll
Right.
be like, oh, I'll get a hold of you next week, and let you know what my schedule is, and we'll go out and, get a beer or get a coffee or something like that. And it's like, after about the second time of them just not, getting back a hold of you, you're just kind of like, okay, well, I'm just gonna leave
Yeah.
that one alone. Like I'm just not even
Oh yeah.
gonna.
Yeah. I'm with you. There's just no point in trying to kill yourself over something that's not going to work anyway. Because I mean, you live such different lives, and I'm not saying you can't live different lives and talk to people. Heck, me and you are different as night and day in some ways. Um, but we still talk. But at the same time, it's like you live completely different lives. It's really hard to catch up. Sometimes you just got to let it go. It's really not that big a deal.
Yeah, and you have to let them be free to cut people out of their lives that they don't want in there anymore either. And
Oh yeah,
try to
yeah,
not be mad at them because their life is just not in a place that yours is at. And
yeah,
they might be struggling in a way that they just can't handle somebody with different views, or you just never know. And
yeah,
so a lot of times we want to get angry and upset and hurt, and I'm not saying that it doesn't hurt at all anymore, but it's like, what, I have to cut people out of my life sometimes, and maybe I'm one of the people that they have to cut out, and you kind of have to be okay with
yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know how it works with you, but most of the time when that happens, when you cut somebody out, or I mean, I know that sounds kind of harsh. But you don't have somebody in your life anymore. You're not in somebody else's. I mean, somebody else. I guarantee somebody else is going to show up, and you're gonna run into somebody that's walking the same walk you're walking, or whatever, and it'll more than make up for it. Like, I mean, heck, when I left the Amish and left the military, like I've got, excuse me, more family now, I think, than I've ever had. Um, even with having completely different views and opinions, and it just works that way. I mean, you kind of attract what you are, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that's so true. And I've seen so many people move even out of state to a completely new area, a place that they really don't know anybody. And let's say they do go from one church to the next or whatever in a different state even, and they'll almost immediately start attracting the same type of people that they were attracted to in the other, in another
Yeah,
state over. Like if they're drama filled people or something like that, they will get the most drama filled people in that crowd, and they'll just like, a fly to light or whatever. It's
yeah.
just like
it
crazy.
it just works that way. It
Yeah.
just works that way. That's the first thing you really might want to take a look at if you want to change your life, is like maybe look at yourself and change you, because you really ain't got to go out there and look for people or look for things. Most of the time, it just kind of works your way. It's just, I don't know why. I can't explain it. It just does. And it's why so many people, people in I take relationships for instance, and in abusive relationships, they'll get out of one and get into another one if you don't work on yourself. It just works that way. Um, you keep
It
attracting
does.
the same thing over and over.
So when you left the Amish, when you left your mom and dad's house, like where did you go? You stayed there kind of in Kentucky for a little while before you came to Ohio, didn't you?
Yeah, I stayed in Western Kentucky for I want to say, you see, about 6 months. Went to Southern Illinois and actually worked for one of my friends that left the Amish environment in Illinois, and then that's when I went, and then I came back and went to Ohio. I think it was April of 14, I believe, is when I made it to Ohio. So I was in Western Kentucky and Southern Illinois for less than a year, I guess, before I made it up there. So yeah.
Everything happened for you really quick then, because like when you were up here, when I think back of when you and some of the other guys were here too, it seemed like it was a relatively long period of time, but you really were not here for a long time at all.
Oh no, no, I was there less than a year. I was there April-ish of 14 until December, January of maybe December of that same year. I left and worked in Western Kentucky and Florida again for about 3 months before I joined the military. Um, and that was just simply because the job I was working didn't have work through the winter time. Um, so I was in Florida and stuff like that, doing some work down there. I mean, I think we probably uh, explored the Amish thing pretty much through and through at this point. um,
Yeah,
I
cool.
can
I
go
mean,
in the
whatever.
I mean, I can go in the military thing a little bit if need be, with what I can.
Yeah, I
It won't
mean,
be a
you
whole.
don't I know that there's things there you don't want to talk about and that you can't talk about, and that's fine. Like, I mean, I don't even care if you just want to tell, if you want to talk about that at all, or just tell people you were there, where you were stationed. I don't
Yeah,
know. You just kind of,
sure. I can go into that briefly. Yeah, I was. I think it was April of 2015 when I joined the military. Went in as a helicopter mechanic and did basic training in Fort Benning, Georgia. Hated that place. Oh my God, I hated that place. And so I went to basic training there. Went to AIT in Virginia. That wasn't too bad. And then I was stationed in Fort Drum for 3 years. During the time I was there, was about pretty much as soon as I got there, I went down to a flight company and I was a helicopter crew chief for the rest of my career. Um, you do some maintenance, some not super in depth stuff, but some of the daily type stuff, and you would fly with a helicopter whenever it would leave the ground, help the pilots out, let them know where to land, all that good stuff, shoot the guns. It was a good job. It actually was a lot of fun. Um,
sounds like so
and during
much
that, it was a good job. And during that time, I think it was 17. I went to Romania. Was the main place we were at for 9 months. Um, and I ended up going to probably 8 or 10 different countries while I was over there: Greece, Germany.
you got around then. I mean, if you went to that many different countries, I mean, that's a lot I mean, just that one deployment to Romania, you went to like 8 or 10 different countries.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, but I didn't know that we had anybody deploying to Romania. I mean, was that more just like training missions or humanitarian aid type of stuff, or?
Well, what they were doing was uh, real simple
Once
answer that
again,
would. Oh no, no, no. This one I can talk about this one. Um, yeah, this one's fine. They Russian deterrence, honestly, is what that one was. and
okay, yeah.
we were working with a bunch of different, German, Bulgarian, Romanian, different armies over there, like helping train them. And the Russians were actually where we were at in Romania was uh, about it was a very short flight from a part of Ukraine where there was actually Russian troops. and they would ping us with their systems all the time when we're out flying.
So they would have been over. That would have been shortly after they went and took Crimea, like so. Down there in the Black Sea, probably, right?
Yes, yes. So I don't know exactly when they took that, but that was we were there in 2017, and they were definitely there, and they watched us all the time. So yeah.
Yeah, I think they would have went down, took Crimea maybe three years before that in 2014, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, we weren't very far from there, but that was basically it. It was like the whole European Union thing and training with other troops, and but Russian deterrence honestly was the main thing, just to try to keep them from, I guess, doing what we didn't want them to do, I guess. So I guess kind of a, I don't know, push shove kind of thing, I guess. I don't know. Nobody's really doing much of anything, but we're all there barking at each other.
Having a pissing contest.
Pretty much. Yeah, so that was a good trip, by the way. Be a great place to go to, actually. If you ever get a chance, but definitely go see Romania. It is beautiful. It's awesome. It'll tickle your brain. It'll make you think in different ways for sure. Kind of opens your eyes to different cultures, I guess. Which, I mean, you know that with having been to Middle East too. But yeah, it's not everybody ticks the same way we do, and it just kind of makes you think that, oh, okay, well, there are different ways of doing things, you know.
And so when you came back from Romania, where did you go from there?
So I was in Fort Drum for a little bit, but when I was over there, I actually dropped a packet to go to Army Special Operations, and actually early of 18, right after I got back, early 18, I went down there, went through that assessment thing, and made it in there. And then 2018, I got stationed at Fort Campbell, and then I was there until June of this year. So I was there a little bit over 4 years.
Yeah, you were in the Army actually for a long time then. I mean, it was like going on 8 years, right?
Yeah, I was there a little bit over 7 years. So April, 7 years and about 3-ish months, something like that, 2 to 3 months, just over 7 years.
So, the only place that you got to see with Fort Drum was Romania, and then obviously, I mean, is that correct? Just Romania?
Europe, Europe in general. So quite a few different countries over there. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Your deployment was kind of to Romania, and then you went to a bunch of the different ones, and then
yes,
when you went down there, well, you said to Campbell. Then from there, I mean, you had quite a few deployments, but they would have been maybe shorter ones to various different places.
Yes. Yeah, they would have been quite a bit shorter. I think I deployed five times altogether, I think, but none of them were over 4 months. So which, I mean, you were always busy and always doing stuff, so sometimes it seemed a little bit longer maybe, but it really wasn't that long. And the only reason I even hit 4 months on that, or close to 4 months on that one, was because of COVID. And COVID came around when I was over there. We kind of got stuck there for a while. So.
That's crazy. So I mean, it even shut down people coming back to the States from their deployments and everything, I guess, huh?
Oh yeah, yeah. It shut down people coming back. It shut down people coming over. They were telling us that in the Middle East where we're at, they were telling us that they were like almost like mass graves in some areas. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that was a real thing or not. But
holy crap! Yeah, I didn't really hear about that.
I don't know. I mean, they might have been full of crap. Who knows? But that's what the one report thing was. I mean, they said not exactly like a mass grave, but almost. There's so many people dead that there's people like, I guess, everywhere. I don't know. I don't remember exactly how something was mentioned about mass graves, but I kind of doubt it was that bad. Not like a mass grave in a war or something, but supposedly they were dying like crazy.
So now, I mean, this is just a I'm not going into anything here, or not trying to, but through that whole thing, was it true that in the military you guys all had to get vaccinated? Was it kind of a thing where that was mandatory in the military through that time?
Yeah, you're talking about the COVID vaccine?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it was like anything else, anthrax, whatever else. Like you had to get it or get out.
I felt like a voodoo doll when I was in the army. Like you just got stuck by needles all the time. Like anytime you went
Oh
anywhere,
yeah,
they just did a bunch of vaccines. It's like crazy.
yeah, yeah. They stuck me with everything when I got to basic training because I'd never really had any vaccines, and so they stuck me with everything. And I got more than everybody else did. I was like, this is bullshit. Um, and
Yeah,
basically,
I got a full dose of them when I went to basic, and then later that same year, like I mean, I went to basic training in January and deployed in September of the same year. So I got all my
Lord,
vaccinations. Yeah, I got all my vaccinations in basic because I didn't have any shot records, right? Well, then
yeah.
when you got to your main unit and you're deploying, they're like, yeah, these shot records are pretty much not going to be any good. So then you just got them all over again. I mean, I got sicker than a dog, man. I got so
Yeah,
sick after that.
yeah, I believe it. I probably need to do good detox or something after getting out. But yeah, they when I went to Campbell, I got more there than I did when I went to basic training. I got way more there. I guess it's kind of a just because of the unit I was in. Like, man, they stick you with everything. Um, Rabies, the whole 9 yards. Um, so,
Maybe I
yeah,
needed to get that one too.
yeah, they stuck us with a whole bunch of stuff. So the COVID thing really wasn't that big a deal to me. Like I know a lot of people were like either all for it or all against it, depending where you were at on the spectrum. Now, I personally, for myself, since I've gotten out, like they asked me at the VA the other day if I want a flu vaccine. I was like, no, I really don't. Don't stick me with anything. Just 'cause I don't really don't want to. So in that aspect, I really didn't want to, but it didn't really bother me just because of the COVID vaccine thing. If I could have opted out, I would have, but just because I don't like vaccines necessarily in general. But um, it really wasn't that big of a sticking point for me, I guess.
Yeah, no, and I'm kind of at the same place where I'm not into the whole thing where it's like, killing everybody like they say, but I'm also not into a lot of vaccines just because of how sick I got when I got the second round of
Yeah,
my vaccinations and stuff like that. And then I actually quit getting sick after I stopped getting the flu shot.
yeah,
And
yep,
so, like, I mean, I'm not saying I don't ever get the sniffles or anything like that, but and that's just my experience. I'm not saying that vaccines are wrong. I'm not like this big conspiracy theorist, anti-vaxxer. It's just me personally. I'm like, I had so many of them when I was in the army that if I don't have to have any right now, I'm just not going to take them. Like,
yeah,
I'll take my
yep,
chances with getting a cough and a sniffle or even COVID. I'm like, I really don't give a rip. I'm just like,
yep,
I just don't need to
yep.
be vaccinated. I don't feel like.
I agree. I've had enough to last me the rest of my life. I'm with you on that one. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that really wasn't that big a deal. But yeah, there's a lot of guys got kicked out. And now it's not even mandatory anymore. The COVID vaccine's not even mandatory for the military anymore. So
Yeah, I heard they're
uh,
doing it more like the flu vaccine now, where it's like every year, if you want to get it, you can, but it's not a big deal if you get it or not, I guess.
well, heck, they're making everybody get the flu vaccine every single year. That's not optional anymore.
So you kind of went through your bunches of deployments there pretty quick. And then, I mean, overall, your experience in the Army, I mean, is it something that you're glad you're out now? Um, But I mean, did you have fun? I mean, would you trade the experience for anything at all?
Oh no, yeah, no, I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't trade it at all. Um, I wouldn't trade. Honestly, looking back, I wouldn't trade any bit of it. Like parts of it, man, they sucked, as you know. So they really sucked. But man, I met some of the best people in the world there, and I met some really, don't really like to look at it this way, but I met some really crappy people too, you know. So, um, but yeah, had some really good times. Made some really good friends and family that I still talk to on a weekly basis, almost to this day. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. I really would. Not even combat stuff. Like I really would not. Like I've had minimal problems with any of that, and um, it getting out was the hardest part. It was time to get out. Don't get me wrong, and I had a lot of time to prepare for it. It was a stepping stone for me more than anything, and I wouldn't trade it. But getting out was the hardest part because I mean you got people around you all the time. Excuse me. And I'm not really that peoply anyway. But it was different because as in the military, like you could have called anybody in the middle of the night and they might have bitched and moaned and something, but they would have come got you and whatever you needed to do, even the crappiest ones. And it's a little tough to find outside of it, to that degree at least.
It's a whole other culture. It's a whole other community. It's one of those things that, I mean, regardless on how you view the military or anything, like it is something that you learn who you are in a completely new way. Like, and it pushes you to
Yeah.
your limits, and you have some of the best times of your life there, because you
Yeah.
achieved so many things that you would have never thought you could do before. And
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and
absolutely.
yeah, and it's sometimes like being in there, like and achieving some things like stuff like that, and just back to back, and it makes you feel like you're almost invincible, and which you're not, but uh, at least not
Sometimes you want to
not in
think
that
you are.
sense. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're young, and you get it all figured out, and you think you are, and then you wake up and you're 28 and had a couple surgeries and life's whacking you in the face. Like, okay, all right,
Your
time to
body's
pack up,
already
reset.
broke down, like you're, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, but yeah, it was, man, it was so worth it. It's, I don't agree with everything there, but yeah, I wouldn't trade it. Wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but I wouldn't not recommend it. If I don't, it's hard to explain.
yeah, I've already had to wonder, like, it's once again one of those things. I'm not like all anti-military, like anti-army, or I'm not one of those people. I have rethought my position on a lot of different things over the years. Um, but I've wondered already what I would think if, like, my son would come up and tell me, that, when he's 18 that he wants to enlist. Like, what would I say? Like,
Yeah,
would I be proud? Like, I'm always going to be proud of my kid. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, would I be happy that he's doing that, or would I be like, oh, like, because I mean, I remember, I mean, you do some crazy things. I mean, I drank like a fish. I mean, I did some very awesome things there, but I also did things that I'm not very proud of. Like,
yeah, yep. I get it. Yeah, I get that.
so then, okay, after that, I mean, you're out of the army. You just kind of got out. Obviously, you said, the hardest part of getting out of the army was, or the hardest thing about the army was getting out.
Yeah,
I
for
mean,
sure.
did you kind of want to talk through that a little bit, where you're at now, what you're all about?
Yeah, yeah. I would say the hardest part of it, of getting out, was that's a little hard to explain to somebody that's never been there. Um, and I don't even say that to try to exclude people. It just is. You cannot explain it to your civilian friends. It's real hard to do. Um, but yeah, you get out, and I've never felt so danged alone in my life, man. It it was weird. But like there was times I would get home and I would like and be like, golly, like I had a roommate, Katie moved to Kentucky, but I could sit beside her or anybody else, and I could be talking to him and feel so freaking alone. It was ridiculous. Like I don't even know how to explain that. And
Was that
but
just because you knew that you had like all of these different experiences and you could you could try to talk to them, you could try to explain, you knew that just nobody would understand you? Was it maybe even the loss of community or like maybe all of the above or
I don't know that it was so much the loss of community. It was probably maybe, and this probably has a little bit of community in it, but I couldn't talk to anybody about it. And in hindsight, I should have called you more. I should have called a couple of my other buddies more. That kind of thing, because you guys can relate. But like after a while, when you get out, like your civilian friends, they don't want to hear it anymore.
yeah,
It's
oh, I
just,
know.
and that's a cold hard truth. And I'm not knocking that. I'm not knocking them. They can't get it. They haven't been there, and I'm not, I'm not knocking them. It's just you're not relatable. You're not relatable, and you have to almost figure out a way to take your military experience and relate it in a, because you have to, because people most times are not going to reach out to you, so you almost have to figure out how to reach out to people. It's almost necessary. Like I'm not that peoply, but you have to have some type of connection almost with people. At least for me, I found out that to be very necessary, and so you got to figure out a way. Maybe think about it in your head. How your experiences affect the way you think and believe and relate to people now, and relate in that way. But most people don't want to hear it. Um, at least after a while. And that's something I had to come to grips with pretty quick, I guess. And I can count on one hand how many really bad days I had since getting out. I guess over 6 months ago now, like 8 months, something like that. Um, and that I'm fortunate for that, but I'm also fortunate to have had. I've called you a couple times, like I over the summer, and I'm fortunate to have had that. But I think it's just relatable. People just can't relate, and that's nothing on them. You can't. If you haven't been there, you can't relate. Just like I can't relate to all their experiences. I can listen and try to be sympathetic, but if I haven't been there, I don't know. Um, so that was tough. That that was a little tough. But I kind of had to get my crap together and be like, all right, you know what? Maybe they don't relate to you, but maybe reach out to people that do, and um, kind of take responsibility for where I'm at, and for where my headspace is at, and just kind of help things at that point of, I don't know. I'm really big into personal responsibility. Like maybe the things you went through, not all that is your fault, but it's yours to take care of now. And so that's a realization that really helped me. And I got a dog who hung out with me no matter what. So
Dogs are good. Dogs are good. Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, that was the hard part. I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah.
No, I 100% agree. Now when you were you were kind of getting ready to get out and stuff like that. I mean, you did have maybe some access in the military and stuff to like mental health, like therapists and stuff like that. Did you make
Yeah.
good use of that then? Did that help you through kind of?
Yeah. So I actually they have what they called MFLAC, Military Family Life Counselor, and this kind of dates kind of a different story in itself. So I won't get into that at the moment of how I got started with MFLAC, but um, I guess I was 2 years, year and a half, 2 years close to getting out. I was like, you know what? I don't want to get out, and not knocking them, but I don't want to get out and be 80 years old and wear that little black hat on my head with the two ribbons that says I was here, and it's the only thing I have to talk about. And so I was like,
Wow,
I got
that
to
was
figure
really good. Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
it. So I was like, I got to figure out me. And I was kind of at a point to where I really needed to work through some things anyway. And so I started going to what was called Military Family Life Counselor. And the dude, honestly, like, that really just helped me because, like, somebody will sit there and listen to your shit. And then the good thing about this guy, he would actually call me on my shit. And and I was at a point in life where I was actually receptive to that. And so he was very helpful. helped me get in a good headspace. That was after deploying multiple times. You get back, you go from like this adrenaline, just constant line of adrenaline to bam. Now I'm doing nothing and getting surgeries and all this other stuff. And like the dude actually had me like get on like specific vitamins and stuff to help me make me feel better and like kick out of depression type thing, which was just enough to clear my headspace to where I could go to physical therapy, find out alternate ways to work out, and just really get in a much better headspace to where I was able to start thinking honestly kind of the way I was designed to do. Like I'm actually kind of in some ways I'm a deep thinker, in other ways I'm very simple, and I was kind of able to figure all that out. So yeah, it just kind of helped me work through that, and with relational stuff as well, which I won't really get into that part of it just simply because it's not all my story to tell. But yeah, absolutely invaluable. Would not be where I'm at today had it not been for that guy, for sure.
That's so amazing. I wish I would have made more use of going to therapists and stuff like that. I was younger. It would have helped me out a lot. It would have helped me out so much. And I also don't know if they're making a new effort to kind of get people in front of counselors a little bit more nowadays. I'm not sure, but I think that would have been so valuable. And then it sounds like you got a really good guy on top of that. So you did say guy, right?
Yeah. And yeah, that helps. And there is more of a push now to do that, but there's still such a stigma attached to it in the military still to this day. Like I guess it is on the civilian side too. I don't know. I just stopped caring because I just decided to be open about it, and it creates some pretty good conversations. But there's still all this stigma attached to it. Not just that. If you are, say you work where I worked at, and you start going to, let's say it's not MFLAC, but behavioral health that goes on your records. Now they're going to pull you off deployments. They're going to pull you off doing what you love to do while this is ongoing. So they may not hate you for it like they used to, but it still has its consequences. And so people, I think, are still very hesitant to get into that, at least in the military. I don't know about the civilian side of it.
That's so sad, though, that, yeah, no, I mean, I think it's kind of the same way. I mean, I think we're growing in that direction where it's becoming more acceptable, but it's just really sad. I think that, we don't look at our mental health the same way that we do the rest of our health, and,
Exactly.
and that's probably one of the most important ones that you should focus on, because your mental state can affect your physical state.
Oh, yeah.
And,
yeah.
And then you got,
Sorry.
the suicide epidemics and stuff like that. I mean, if we would just become more aware that we're having a health crisis, I think, especially, I don't know what it's like around the world, but definitely here in America. And I think a big part of that is our mental health, I
Oh,
think.
yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you're absolutely right, because generally speaking, if you take a normal American, they probably tend to their spiritual side somewhat, probably different from like me or you, or heck, we're all different, so it's going to be different from everybody. But to some degree, it's kind of expected you tend to your spiritual side, whether it's through religion or whatever else. You go see a doctor once a year, whatever. But as soon as you go for like your mental health, things get weird. Like people won't talk about it. There's nothing talked about, and like people will just shut up. and that's it. They might
Start
not even they might not even look at you as if you're weird or something, or they might. But either way, it's not talked about. Nobody talks about that stuff, and then if you talk about it, um, um, there's some people that lose friends over that. There's some people that lose family over that. And this is, to me, it's just ridiculous. Like, that's just another part of you. Not just this, probably the most important part of you, because if your mental health is not right, it actually affects the rest of your body. It affects your physical health. And I'm not a doctor or anything like that, but
This is where I'm going to have to cut this one off. I'm going to make a part 2 of this episode because he starts transitioning into kind of more getting out of the Army and mental health, how to deal with that whole thing. And he touches on that briefly, and that is a very important thing to veterans. I don't know if people are aware of how many veterans commit suicide just because of how hard it actually is to transition out of the military. So he's going to touch on that. He's going to talk about life, obviously, after the Army and what's going on a little bit more now. He kind of gets a little bit more, into some deeper subjects and stuff like that. So I think this is a good transition spot so that this video simply just does not get too long, which I have a bad habit of doing anyways. I hope to see you guys back for part 2 of this episode. Have a good one.